She walked into one of the most exclusive hotels in Manhattan, confident, polished, and carrying a black card, the kind of card that only a select few in the world have the privilege to own. But when she handed it over at the front desk, the staff laughed, not because she had done anything wrong, but because of their assumptions. Ava Lawson, the CEO of Novatech Industries, was a successful billionaire tech mogul, yet the hotel employees couldn't see past her appearance. They mocked her, unaware that the deal she was about to sign, the very one they were connected to, was worth a jaw-dropping $2.8 billion. Instead of letting it slide, she canceled the deal on the spot, turning the tables in an instant. That was just the beginning. What happened next would send shockwaves through the industry, shake the hotel's reputation to its core, and teach a powerful lesson in respect, power, and taking control of your destiny. It was a rainy Monday morning in Manhattan, the kind of dreary gray day that made the city feel even more chaotic and impersonal. The streets were slick with puddles, and the towering glass buildings loomed like silent giants against the overcast sky. Yet despite the weather, there was a quiet confidence in the air, a certain elegance that came with the day's unfolding events. Derrick Lawson, a 38-year-old black CEO, stepped out of his chauffeured car in front of the prestigious Pendleton Grand Hotel. The car's sleek black body gleamed under the misty drizzle, but Derrick paid little attention to it. His mind was focused on the meeting ahead. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored navy blue suit that hugged his lean frame, his polished loafers clicking softly against the wet pavement as he moved toward the entrance. His every step was deliberate, measured. He knew who he was, and he carried himself with that unshakable confidence. In his hand, he held the one thing that was his ticket into the world of the ultra-elite, the symbol of luxury, success, and power. A matte black American Express Centurion card, also known as the Black Card. A status symbol coveted by the world's wealthiest. It was not just a way to make payments, it was a way to announce to the world that you had made it. The card, sleek and understated, carried with it an air of exclusivity, but Derrick wasn't fazed. It was a tool, nothing more, a reflection of his hard-earned success. As he walked into the hotel's grand lobby, the smell of fresh flowers and the quiet hum of the chandelier overhead filled the space. The Pendleton Grand was one of Manhattan's most luxurious hotels, where the marble floors and intricate architecture screamed opulence. Every detail was designed to make the guest feel like royalty. Derrick's eyes scanned the lobby as he moved toward the reception desk, but he wasn't here to admire the decor. He was here to seal the deal of a lifetime. Behind the desk, two receptionists exchanged quick, subtle glances as Derrick approached. One, a woman with a tight bun and cold blue eyes, looked Derrick up and down. It was a quick appraisal, nothing out of the ordinary in the hospitality business, but something about the way she looked at him, something in the way her eyes flicked to the card in his hand, made him pause. Her forced smile didn't fool him, but he didn't react. Instead, he simply approached the desk, setting his black card down with deliberate precision. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked, her voice flat, the politeness in her tone almost exaggerated. She glanced at his navy suit again, then back at the card. It was brief, but it was enough. Derrick felt the tension in the air shift, though he didn't show it. He wasn't here to make trouble, he was here to make a statement. "I'm checking in. Derrick Lawson," he said calmly, giving her his name. She tapped at the keyboard, but there was something in her movements that seemed a little off. She hesitated. The silence stretched for a second longer than necessary. Her fingers hovered over the keys before she finally pressed a few buttons and then paused, clearly searching for something on the screen. Her colleague, a young man with messy hair and a hint of a smirk on his face, leaned forward and whispered loud enough for Derrick to hear, "We get these all the time. Most are fake. You'd be surprised." The words were sharp, dismissive, laced with judgment. Derrick's eyebrows shot up in surprise, but his face remained calm, his gaze unwavering. He wasn't sure if the comment was aimed at him or just a comment about the card in general, but he heard it, loud and clear. The woman at the desk finally looked back at Derrick, her face no longer neutral. She had taken the card gingerly, inspecting it like she was checking for counterfeit money. Her eyes narrowed, then as if something in the process struck her as funny, she chuckled, louder than necessary. "I'm sorry, sir, but we can't accept this card," she said, her voice too bright, too insistent. "You'll need to use something else." Derrick tilted his head slightly, his patience thinning. "Excuse me," he was certain he hadn't heard her correctly. The black card? The black card? He had used it countless times without issue, at high-end hotels, exclusive restaurants, luxury boutiques, all over the world. But here at the Pendleton Grand, it seemed like it wasn't good enough. The woman's smile was now tight, almost condescending, as she handed the card back to him. Derrick glanced at it, his fingers lightly brushing the embossed black surface. He hadn't expected this. He was no stranger to discrimination. He'd faced it his whole life, but this felt different. This wasn't just about race. This was about status, about a refusal to see him as someone worthy. A white man dressed in shorts and flip-flops strolled up to the desk just then. Without hesitation, the staff greeted him warmly, offering him an upgrade and escorting him to the penthouse with a bottle of champagne in hand. Derrick didn't react outwardly, but his mind was racing. His eyes followed the man, watching him be treated like a king despite his casual attire, while he stood there, wearing an Armani suit and holding a card that could buy that hotel and everything in it 10 times over. The receptionist didn't even notice the irony. Derrick stood still, his face unreadable, but inside, he felt the familiar burn of indignation. This wasn't just a slight, it was a challenge, a test, and now, he had to decide, walk away quietly, or make them see who he was. Derrick Lawson stood at the desk, his fingers gripping the sleek black card, as the receptionist and her colleague tried to recover from their moment of embarrassment. He had a decision to make, and it was clear he wasn't going to back down. With a calm that only came from years of navigating high-stakes business, Derrick placed his phone on the desk, the sleek device glinting under the hotel's warm lights. He pressed a button on his phone and leaned in slightly toward the front desk, speaking coolly to the air. "David, I need you to cancel my entire New York schedule. Also, inform the board, we're pulling out." The words hung in the air, shocking the receptionist. She blinked, unsure if she had heard him right. "Cancel? What exactly?" she asked, her voice betraying a flicker of disbelief. Derrick didn't falter. His eyes remained locked with hers, steady and unwavering. "A $2.8 billion real estate deal that would have turned this hotel into the crown jewel of a luxury tech resort chain," he said, his voice smooth as silk but with an unmistakable edge to it. The woman's eyes widened, her mouth slightly agape as she tried to process the weight of what he had just said. The color drained from her face, and her hand still holding the black card trembled slightly. She had underestimated him, and now the truth was dawning on her. Meanwhile, the young man who had laughed at Derrick earlier, the one who had assumed the black card was fake, took a step back, his posture stiffening. His earlier smirk faded completely, replaced by a deep unease. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. "Wait, are you he started, his voice trailing off as the implication of Derrick's words sank in. Derrick's lips curled into a faint but knowing smile. He reached into his pocket, pulling out his ID, and placed it carefully on the desk. The bold text on the card read, "Derrick Lawson, CEO of Novatech Industry." He didn't need to say more. The card spoke for itself. The woman and her colleague exchanged a glance, the weight of their mistake settling heavily between them. But before they could speak, the manager, who had been watching the scene unfold from a distance, rushed over, his face filled with panic. "Mr. Lawson," he exclaimed, his tone strained with urgency, "I am so sorry for the confusion. We didn't mean. Please, let us fix this. We'll upgrade your room, we'll give you anything you need. Please, allow us to make this right." Derrick didn't flinch, his expression still calm and collected. His gaze flickered briefly to the manager, who now stood in front of him, visibly sweating. But Derrick wasn't here for apology. He wasn't interested in hollow gestures of kindness. What had just occurred was not just a mistake, it was a revelation of the hotel's true attitude. He held up his hand, silencing the manager before he could say another word. "You already showed me exactly how you treat people who don't look like your idea of success," Derrick said softly, his voice measured but full of conviction. There was no anger in his tone, just an icy clarity. He had seen this behavior before, but this time, it was different. This time, it wasn't going to slide. The manager stammered, trying to backtrack. "Mr. Lawson, please, I can assure you, we have high standards for all our guests, but this was just a misunderstanding, a simple oversight." But Derrick wasn't listening anymore. He was already turning away, his thoughts already moving past this moment. He reached into his bag, pulling out his phone again. He dialed a number without looking back. As Derrick spoke quietly into the phone, the hotel manager stood frozen, his eyes wide as he watched the reality of what had just happened start to hit the staff around him. The front desk clerk, who had mocked Derrick earlier, was standing stock still, a mix of embarrassment and disbelief on her face. Her colleague, the young man who had been dismissive about the black card, was now staring at Derrick's departing figure with a dawning realization. They had no idea who they had just disrespected. Derrick's voice, clear and calm, drifted over his shoulder as he spoke into the phone. David, I'm canceling all our plans here in New York. Contact the board and let them know this deal is on. I won't be doing business with people who treat their clients like this. He ended the call with a click, his mind already focused on the next steps. He didn't have time to waste, and he wasn't about to let this hotel's blind judgment become his problem. Without another word, Derrick walked toward the elevator, leaving behind a stunned hotel staff. The manager, looking as though he might have just lost his job, hurriedly motioned for a colleague to follow, but it was too late. The damage was done. Derrick had made his decision, and the Pendleton Grand had just lost not just a guest, but a potentially life-changing business deal. What the staff at the Pendleton Grand Hotel didn't know, as Derrick walked away from the front desk, was that their mistake was already being broadcast to millions. Sitting in the corner of the lobby, a teenager had been mindlessly scrolling through his phone when he noticed the interaction between Derrick and the hotel staff. He had no idea who Derrick was, but he saw the way the receptionist treated him, how she laughed off the black card, and how the young man at the desk had made his dismissive comment. The whole scene seemed like something out of a bad movie, a rich, successful black man being disrespected in the heart of one of the world's most exclusive hotels. Without thinking much about it, the teenager quickly pulled out his phone and pressed record. He didn't know that this moment would become one of the defining viral moments of the year, but he was about to make sure it did. As Derrick walked toward the elevator, he captioned the video. They laughed at a black man using a black card. Turns out he owns half the block. He hit upload, and within minutes, the video began to spread like wildfire. At first the video had only a few views, but as more people watched, more people shared it. The caption was powerful, short, direct and full of punch, and the video hit a nerve. People couldn't believe what they were seeing. How could a hotel, known for its luxury and exclusivity, treat a guest like that? And why was it always black men who had to face this kind of disrespect? Within hours, hashtags like Black Excellence, Derrick Lawson, and Hotel Fail began to trend across social media platforms, especially Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. The video had gone viral. Celebrities were the first to weigh in. LeBron James, Oprah Winfrey, and Rihanna all took to Twitter, offering their support for Derrick. LeBron, in particular, tweeted, "Another example of a black man being underestimated. They thought they could get away with it. Derrick Lawson, keep shining." Oprah posted a picture of herself holding a black card, writing, "The real ones know how hard we work to get here. The disrespect stops now." Rihanna, with her signature fierce attitude, shared the video with the caption, "They tried it, but now the whole world knows. Respect Black Excellence." It wasn't long before the video was picked up by news outlets. The story spread like wildfire, and within hours, headlines from major publications flashed across screens worldwide. Billionaire CEO snubbed at hotel, pulls $2.8 billion deal in stunning move. Hotel staff laugh at black card. CEO cancels multi-billion-dollar deal. Disrespect in luxury. How one hotel lost a $2.8 billion deal over racism. The Pendleton Group, the parent company of the Pendleton Grand Hotel, began to feel the heat. Stock prices, which had once been climbing steadily, plummeted. Investors were furious. The company's board scrambled to control the damage. Calls flooded the press office, but no one was answering with any satisfaction. The backlash was overwhelming. People began digging deeper, researching the Pendleton Group's past, uncovering years of similar stories from patrons who had been treated unfairly based on their race, appearance or social status. What had once been an elite hotel chain now had a stain on its reputation that seemed impossible to scrub away. The Pendleton Group issued a statement, trying to backpedal, but it only made things worse. They claimed it was a misunderstanding and promised to launch a comprehensive review of their staff training. But for every apology they sent out, another tweet, another post, another viral meme was tearing down their credibility. Social media users mocked their weak response, and the world watched as they crumbled under the weight of their own ignorance. Meanwhile, Derrick Lawson, he was on a flight to Dubai, sipping a cup of tea at 40,000 feet, as he watched the chaos unfold on his phone. It had all happened so quickly. One decision, one moment of disrespect, and now the hotel that had laughed at him was the one facing public scorn. Derrick didn't feel vindicated. That wasn't the goal. The goal was to send a message, to show the world that no one, no matter how powerful, could get away with treating people like they didn't matter. Derrick wasn't about to let this slip by. He had power, and he knew how to use it. As the plane soared through the clouds, Derrick scrolled through his feed, watching as people from all over the world reacted to the viral video. He was amazed at how quickly the story had spread, how many people had rallied behind him. His phone buzzed with notifications, text messages, tweets, mentions, but he didn't reply. Not yet. There was no need. He had already made his point. He knew there would be more to come. The hotel, the board, the staff, they'd all have to face the consequences of their action. But for now he sat back, his tea warm in his hand, and smiled to himself. The world had just learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate a black man with a black card. 3 weeks had passed since the viral incident at the Pendleton Grand, and the ripple effects were still being felt across the business world. What had seemed like an isolated moment of disrespect had turned into a full-blown spectacle, one that no one in the luxury hospitality industry would forget anytime soon. But for Derrick Lawson, the CEO of Novatech Industries, the situation had been about more than just payback. It had been about creating an opportunity. And now, whispers were starting to spread on Wall Street, making it clear that Derrick wasn't just moving on, he was positioning himself for something much bigger. Derrick had already turned the page on his dealings with the Pendleton Grand. While the hotel struggled to recover from the backlash, he was focused on something far more important, a new business partnership that would change the game. Rivara Group, Pendleton's biggest rival, had been quietly negotiating with Novatech. Their interest in the luxury tech resort market was growing, and when Rivara's leadership saw the opening left by the Pendleton Group's tarnished reputation, they didn't hesitate. It was a strategic move that would not only advance Derrick's vision for the tech resort industry, but also send a pointed message to the Pendleton Group. Novatech had struck a secret partnership with Rivara, and the first project in their new venture would be a state-of-the-art tech resort, built directly across the street from the Pendleton Grand. The irony was undeniable. The very hotel that had mocked him would now have to look up at the towering symbol of his success every single day. But Derrick's masterstroke didn't stop there. He knew the Pendleton Group was struggling, its reputation in tatters, and its financial prospects bleak. Rivara, always eager for an opportunity, saw this as a golden chance to capitalize on their weakened competitor. They offered to buy out the Pendleton Grand, now a shadow of its former glory, at a fraction of its original value. The deal was a sweet. It would provide Rivara with an immediate lucrative asset, while allowing them to expand into the luxury tech resort market, where Novatech had already established a foothold. But Derrick wasn't about to let the Pendleton Group off easy. He approved the acquisition, but with one significant condition: every single employee who had treated him poorly, who had belittled him, or had mocked his success, must be let go. There were no exceptions. Derrick wasn't doing this for revenge, but for justice. The hotel had built its reputation on being exclusive, on treating people like they were either worthy or unworthy of their luxury services. But Derrick believed in something different: equality, respect. And that was what he was demanding for those who had been unfairly judged based on their appearance or their status. Rivara agreed to the terms without hesitation. It was a business decision, after all, one that would further cement their growing partnership with Novatech. The Pendleton Grand would be gutted, its operations reorganized under Rivara's more inclusive and forward-thinking management. But Derrick didn't stop there. As much as he wanted to ensure that the Pendleton Group paid the price for their actions, he wanted to turn the experience into something positive for the future. That's when he launched his most impactful initiative to date, Black Card, Black Future. It was a mentorship program designed to help young black entrepreneurs navigate the complex world of business with the tools they needed to succeed. Tools like financial literacy, access to capital, and most importantly, confidence. Derrick knew firsthand how difficult it could be to rise to the top in an industry that often seemed designed for people who didn't look like him, and he wanted to give back. He wanted to create opportunities for others to walk through doors that were often closed to them. The program would provide not only financial support but also personal mentorship, with Derrick himself serving as a guiding force for the next generation of black business leaders. It wasn't just about making money, it was about empowerment. Derrick had fought against the system his entire career. Now, he was determined to help those coming up behind him avoid the same hurdles, the same barriers that he had faced. The initiative quickly gained traction, and soon it was being recognized as one of the most important efforts in the entrepreneurial space. Black Card, Black Future wasn't just a catchy name, it was a movement. Young black entrepreneurs from all over the country began applying for mentorship, eager to learn from the CEO who had not only built a $2.8 billion company, but had also taken down one of the world's most prestigious hotels with nothing more than his resolve and his business acumen. As for the Pendleton Group, they were now on the verge of losing everything. The hotel's reputation was beyond repair, and the acquisition deal with Rivara, at a fraction of its previous value, was only a reminder of how quickly fortunes could turn. Derrick had not only built a better future for himself, but he had also ensured that others would rise with him. For Derrick Lawson, it wasn't just about the business, it was about something bigger. It was about leaving a legacy that would empower generations to come, and showing the world that success wasn't just about what you could achieve, it was about who you lifted up along the way. 6 months had passed since the dramatic fall of the Pendleton Grand, and the dawn of something entirely new. The transformation from an industry scandal to a masterstroke of strategy was complete. The sleek new hotel towering across the street from the Pendleton Grand was no longer just an idea, it was a shining reality. The Nova Lux Hotel, as it was now called, had opened its doors to the public, and the world watched in awe as one of the most anticipated projects in the hospitality industry came to life. The hotel's design was breathtaking, polished, futuristic, and flawless. The exterior gleamed under the sun, the clean lines and high-tech features, sending a message to all who looked upon it. This was the future of luxury. Inside, the space was a blend of cutting-edge technology and opulence, designed to cater to a new generation of high rollers who didn't just want luxury, they wanted innovation, authenticity and respect. The opening night was nothing short of spectacular. Celebrities, business moguls, and influencers filled the grand ballroom, all eager to see what Derrick Lawson had built from the ashes of the Pendleton Grand's downfall. For some, it was an opportunity to network with one of the most powerful CEOs in the world. For others, it was a chance to witness the rebirth of the very industry they had once thought impenetrable. But for Derrick, the night wasn't just about the glittering champagne or the luxury. This was a moment of triumph, a statement that everything he had worked for had paid off. He had turned the pain of being mocked, underestimated and disrespected into a symbol of empowerment. The success of Nova Lux wasn't just about profits, it was about rewriting the rules, setting new standards for inclusion, and creating something that truly mattered. Standing in front of the crowd, Derrick could feel the weight of the moment. The flash of cameras, the hum of whispered conversations, the click of glasses, it all faded into the background. This was the culmination of years of hard work, of battles fought in boardrooms, and quiet moments of self-doubt. This moment wasn't just his, it was for every person who had ever been judged by their appearance, or their background, for anyone who had been told they weren't good enough, or worthy enough for the world's best. Derrick cleared his throat, his voice strong but laced with emotion. As he took the microphone, the crowd hushed, eager to hear from the man of the hour. To every young person who's ever been judged by your skin, not your skill, I see you, I was you. His words hung in the air, the sincerity behind them palpable. The crowd was silent for a moment, then erupted into applause. Derrick's words resonated deeply with everyone in the room. They weren't just celebrating a new hotel, they were celebrating a victory over the biases and injustices that had plagued so many for far too long. But Derrick wasn't finished yet. His gaze shifted to the cameras, his smile steady and confident. The question he had known was coming finally arrived, cutting through the noise of the celebration. "Mr. Lawson," a reporter called from the front row, "would you ever consider staying at the old Pendleton Grand again?" Derrick paused, his lips curling into a knowing smile. He had already anticipated the question. The media had spent months speculating about the fate of the Pendleton Grand, how it would eventually be acquired by Rivara, and what it would mean for the legacy of the hotel. There had even been rumors that Derrick might return to stay at the hotel, now under new ownership, as a symbolic gesture of forgiveness. But Derrick had other plans. With the eyes of the world on him, he turned to face the reporter, his response poised, confident, and utterly satisfied. "I already do," he said, his voice cool and controlled. "I own it." A beat of silence followed, and then the crowd erupted into cheers, their applause echoing throughout the grand hall. It was a moment of pure satisfaction, not just for Derrick, but for everyone who had ever felt overlooked or belittled. Here was a man who had taken his respect back, who had used his power not just to succeed, but to change the game entirely. Somewhere in the world, a former hotel clerk, the one who had laughed at Derrick for using his black card, was watching the live stream in stunned silence. Her face, once filled with smugness and dismissive laughter, was now one of disbelief and regret. She had seen Derrick's name in the headlines, she had heard the story, she knew exactly who he was now, but it was too late. The tables had turned, and there was no going back.
Derrick's victory wasn't just about business, it was a victory of self-worth. He had taken the slights, the microaggressions, and the biases thrown at him, and instead of letting them break him, he had used them to fuel his rise. He hadn't just built a hotel, he had built a movement. As the night continued, the party raged on. But for Derrick, there was a sense of peace that came with knowing that the world had finally seen the truth, that he wasn't just the black man with the black card, but the man who had rewritten the rules of success. In the end, it wasn't just about wealth, it was about the legacy he was leaving behind. Nova Lux wasn't just a business, it was a symbol of what happens when you refuse to let anyone define your worth, and when you use your success to uplift those who've been overlooked. Derrick Lawson's story is more than just a tale of personal triumph. It's a powerful reminder that true worth isn't always visible on the surface. In a world where appearances, wealth, and status still shape the way we perceive others, Derrick's experience exposed a harsh truth about the biases and assumptions that continue to plague men. His encounter at the Pendleton Grand wasn't just an isolated act of disrespect, it was a glaring reflection of the way society often judges people based on their skin color, their socioeconomic status, or the way they look. But instead of allowing the hurt and humiliation to define him, Derrick did what few would dare. He used that moment as a launching pad for something far bigger. This story isn't just about a man proving his worth to a hotel staff. It's about the ripple effect that a single moment of injustice can have when someone decides to fight back. Derrick didn't walk away quietly, or quietly accept the mistreatment. Instead, he turned rejection into a revolution. He took the very bias he faced, and transformed it into a driving force that would change the course of his life, his career, and the future of others. Through his strategic brilliance, he not only built an empire with Nova Lux Hotel, but also created a movement aimed at empowering young black entrepreneurs with his Black Card, Black Future Initiative. By making the bold decision to walk away from the hotel and cancel the $2.8 billion deal, Derrick sent a message that was impossible to ignore. He turned what could have been a moment of personal defeat into a statement heard around the world. The Pendleton Group, once a symbol of exclusivity and privilege, found themselves at the mercy of a public reckoning, losing much more than just a deal. They lost their reputation, their credibility, and ultimately their place in an industry they thought was immune to accountability. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Keep believing in yourself, and remember, your story isn't over yet. Keep writing it.